They definitely should make sure, that they are not put all eggs in one basket. Yeah? They should look, okay, which players are around, look at the roadmaps, work with companies like you to get a good understanding, hey, what solutions are out there when we talk about DRAM. I think NAND is even more, you need even more understanding of your customer's need, right? Because you can use a NAND interface or a technology and you load one time the data and then you just read, or you have test and measurement where you constantly do it. It's very important that your customers speak to your sales reps and make sure that they are prepared, that they have like multiple sources or opportunities where they can choose from. And then they need to look and understand more about the process nodes which are available.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Making It Happen by Sims. As we come to the final quarter of 2024 already, we're delighted to have one of the top voices in memory and semiconductors join us, Marco Mezger, who I'm sure most of you or all of you are familiar with. He's been on the pod a few times. So how are you, Marco? All good?
I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be back at the show.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you on, and obviously we tried this in the summer, but it's been a very busy year. And again, we'll see where the market is compared to when we were going to do it in the summer. Probably not too much has changed, but we'll get into that. But how's your year been anyway? Business good?
Yeah, I mean, business good. If you look at memory last year to this year, you normally would say, yeah, business should be good because you see there's a lot of the AI frenzy, there's a lot going on in the media. But the reality is, if you don't have a ticket to the AI party, you are not celebrating.
No, we're definitely getting into that. I think AI is going to be a big discussion today, and I really want to understand from your opinion, just where within the industry people are really making headway in AI from consumer and industrial enterprise, probably all of them, but we'll get into that anyway. So like I said, the audience are probably aware you've done a few market updates for us now. So the first being about a year and a half ago now. So in that time, we discussed where the market was and where it's going. So let's recap on that. I think we probably have to go back to 2023, which feels like a very long time ago, but the semiconductors were losing a lot of money, right, in a very unsustainable way. We're talking billions a quarter. So it was a case of massive oversupply, prices aggressively low, bottoming out. Something really had to change. So what we saw was a reduction in production as such. And with this, prices had to rise. The manufacturers had to start seeing changes to those losses. So with this, or surrounding this, should we say, consumer, I would say, was being very outfought by the growth of enterprise and industrial somewhat. So in line with this, the prices really started to increase, especially across enterprise, and we'll discuss this, but I think that's been a common trend throughout the whole of 2024. But however, I would say on demand, Marco, and we'll discuss this, but locally demand has been still quite weak, we'd say so. But at a consumer level, prices incredibly low, very difficult marketplace right now. So would you say that's a fair, brief summary of the past year from a price, supply and demand perspective? And if not, just give us your thoughts on that and what you've seen happen since we last spoke.
Yeah, I think that was already very good, Drew. I think I would just like to add 2 points to this. You said, they have reduced basically the output for the material, and especially when we talk about memory, it was not only reducing the output, or so to say, the input of the wafer starts. On top of this, it was also reducing the capex, which then I think you said you looked into the notes from 2023. So normally you see the impact of this in 2024, late 2024, where if there is not the capex decision has been made last year or even in the beginning of last year, then you don't have the capacity now. Okay. So what we have seen last year is that the demand, as you said, still was kind of weak, but if you limit the supply or you just don't continue to build up more, then of course what happens is the same demand with the less supply, which is anticipated. And so this means like prices have gone up. We have seen this. You mentioned, I think the terrible year for the memory industry was in 2023. The manufacturers lost over $30 billion together. And they didn't want to do this another year again. So that's why they did these drastic measures where they first started the normal production. They reduced the capex. But on top of this, what is still a very big challenge, especially in Europe, is inventory levels. Yeah. So the inventory levels, and just to dive in there to give you some number, there's an organization in Europe called DMAS. So it's kind of an organization for the franchise distributors, and they are measuring how many semiconductors are sold per quarter into the European market. In Q2 this year, the year-on-year change overall over all European country was minus 33%. Germany alone was minus 45%. Less semiconductors have been sold in Q2 this year comparing to last year. So we definitely have in, let's say, Europe is a traditional, more industrial market, automotive, these kind of areas. Not so much on the consumer electronics. There are some areas, but we are not so competitive there. But you can see that especially automotive and industrial, who suffered the most during the last kind of shortage with MCUs, Texas Instruments, and NXP, and all the other manufacturers, that they piled up inventory. They pulled basically revenue for the semiconductor manufacturers in during the COVID period, and they still trying to go through this inventory. It has improved, so they have reduced. But if we look back probably in 2 years or in 3 years, and we look at the time span of 10 years, we will probably see a normal growth rate, because what we saw during the pandemic was not really normal. And some companies, they anticipated that it would continue like this. And this is a huge challenge for everybody in the channel, right? So this means, okay, demand is weak, fully agree. We need to look a little bit more deeper. Why is the demand weak, right? Definitely also because there's still inventory levels there, but also let's say the economy is also not on full throttle, right? So we still kind of challenges, recalibrate, renavigate, geopolitics. There are so many things to mention in our industry, which is already very challenging, where now also geopolitics is getting involved.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think since we last spoke, inflation was probably at its worst, and we're kind of coming out the other end of that. But even now,
Right.
even when, and you must get it, Marco, when you go and speak to people, and there always seems to be some sort of excuse why his demand is weak. Right now, it's because we've got an election down the road. So, it's just interesting to know, when is that finally going to change? And just from your experience, what is going to be the catalyst to make that change for demand? Is it going to be, are we going to need something quite massive to happen, not like a pandemic, but what is going to be the catalyst for that change with demand?
Yeah, I think let's talk first about some signs of changes, right? I mean, you are based in the UK. In the UK, you have a very famous analyst, Malcolm Penn, a good friend of mine. He has Future Horizon, and he's a veteran in the industry. He's looking at the industry since 50 years. And I had the pleasure to be with him on a conference, and we were speaking on the site. And he said, look, Marco, if we're looking at the semiconductor revenue at the moment, everybody thinks like, oh, wow, we have like, let's say in August, a 20% year-over-year increase, right, of the revenue. But if you look in IC unit shipments, until June this year, we had 20 consecutive months a negative growth on IC unit shipments. You and I know very well why, because the ASPs of memory have been increased comparing to last year.
Yeah.
And a little company with a green logo, Nvidia, making chips for 40 to 50,000 US dollar.
Yeah.
You sell a lot of memory chips to balance this out, and they are thriving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have bottlenecks, on the supply chain. They could sell more. So the whole point is, again, we need to look at the market today on the AI market side, and we look on the general market. And we only will see a change in the market if we see the unit shipments continuously going up. Now, we are lucky that since June, I think it was, when Malcolm made the first statement, we see unit shipments slightly going up, ASP still driving the revenue. But if we can keep this trend, it shows some kind of relief, right? But it's very, very soft. It's not like, oh, wow, this is the next killer application.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, especially if we are looking into our industry in Europe, we need to participate on the second wave of AI. The first
Mm.
wave is all the data centers. I don't think that Europe has a very big play in that. Yeah. So that's the American companies. It's the Meta, the Google, you name
It's the
it, the Microsoft.
hyperscalers, yeah.
Yes. So, but on industrial, on embedded systems, automotive and all of this, Europe definitely has a play there.
Yeah.
But there we don't need chips for 40,000 US dollar. We need chips for 400 US dollar maybe, or for 1,000 US dollar.
Mm.
And they also, for example, when we talk about memory, they don't need necessarily HBM, which is also very tight and very controlled. They
Mm.
use DDR, low power DRAM, these
Hmm.
kind of higher speed DRAM components, but still more commodity style. Yeah.
Mm.
So I believe this is, when we talk about memory market, this is definitely something where I see a great future. IoT, all these things, I think this is a good industry in Europe and also in other areas. But these are some indicators where you can see, and I'm just a little bit surprised how long this downturn is going on, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's the combination of the normal cycle, which we are used to. This is not unique, right? This happens all the time. But the combination with the pandemic,
Mm.
because the pandemic steered everything up, crazy demand created, overbooking. And then at the end, it's an oversupply and it's the inventory, which is now the channel has to be stuck with, right?
Yeah.
Last year it was the manufacturers. This year is OEMs and distributors. But the good news is this will change for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. We're just still very much in a very large hangover period from what we all experienced a while ago, if you can put it like that. So you mentioned something there in HBM that I actually
Uh-huh.
wanted to discuss, and just
Sure.
primarily in terms of production, how that's going to affect things like DRAM and DDR5, because obviously, we're probably expecting that to go into constraint because the manufacturers are putting so much, from what I understand, capacity and utilization into producing this stuff. So I think it would be quite good, actually, Marco, if you could just firstly give an explanation on what HBM is and how it works in terms of enabling AI, and just your opinion on how that's going to affect the production of DRAM and just how easily accessible and the cost of it is going to be over the next 12 months based on this.
Sure. Well, let's start from a very top level. If we look at manufacturing capacity, already in this quarter, roughly around about 50% of all DRAM manufacturing capacity in the world will be either DDR5, HBM, or low power DDR5. Okay, so this will be 50% will be allocated to these type of technologies. So this data is from TrendForce. On top of this, we need to understand what is HBM. HBM is basically several levels of dies stacked on top of each other. On the below, you have basically interposer, you have a chip, and then you have something which is called TSV technology. Like you connect the different dies with very, very small connections through, and then you have the chip ready. The challenge with this manufacturing process is that the yield rates are not on that level, like, for example, a standard DRAM, right? The standard DRAM, you need to have at least 95% and above. So we are talking at HBM, especially when companies are ramping up at a level 65, 70, maybe 75%. And on HBM, it's not so easy that you can take the HBM if it's not passing, that you can, something what people use in the industry called e-fusing, or for example, they sell it as half the density. So for example, if you have a DDR4 8 gig chip and it's not working on the test, you maybe can cut it down to make a DDR8 4 gig chip and you
Mm.
can put it on a module. It's no problem. If you go for a consumer device, you can do it. But on HBM, there's not really a secondary market for this
No.
because HBM is mainly going to NVIDIA. And why HBM? Because HBM is very close to the processor unit. Yeah. So it's much faster. That's why the companies want to have this, especially for the large language models. That's where they are really, really perfect. And that's why they are in so high demand. And the company which has mastered this extremely, extremely well was SK Hynix. So that's why Samsung struggles at the moment to catch up on this. Micron has also a technology out for HBM, which seems to be very power efficient, which is very interesting. But the major the major portion of the business for HBM3E or HBM3 is basically SK Hynix, and Samsung still struggling to catch up. Now, what is the effect on this? We see already some effect on this from different manufacturers that they are exiting certain legacy product families earlier than expected. Okay, so this means, for example, they are exiting DDR3. Yeah, so Samsung pulled in the EOL on DDR3 1 year as originally planned because
Yeah.
they are shifting the production capacity for the newer technology where they can make more money, higher ASP, higher volume, right? So, but I think the good thing is I know you're also working together with Intelligent Memory, so they still have a full line of DDR3. So that's normally where specialists like Sims and companies like IM, they have an opportunity to help customers to continue with this. But the supply is more limited, right?
Yeah.
If one of the top three guys, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron, if they decide, you know what, we are not supporting this product anymore, then there's a significant amount of wafers which is coming off the market. Normally, in the beginning, there is like a bridging time where you do a last time buy. But in reality, the overall supply will get less. So that's why it's very important that your customers are also working closely with you
Yeah.
to give you feedback. So it's not about panicking or saying them, oh, you need to react fast, but they need to understand, okay, what's the dynamics? And then to be able to work with them because AI is really shaking up the industry. And seeing Samsung at the moment losing the leadership in this area is a big deal because they have been 20 years in the leadership. And believe me, they will do everything to go back there again.
Yeah, I agree. And on AI, I think we'll stick on that in a moment. So I think very much
Sure.
everything we discussed at the moment is, and what we understand from the channel and where we see things, AI is very much being used at hyperscale level. So the rest of the cloud service provider players and stuff in the UK that we speak to, they're not there yet. They're very much not using. Well, for example, HBM will never. It's soldered down onto the system. It won't be used in the channels,
Correct.
from what we understand. But there's some way behind in terms of the form factors and the type of technology they use. And obviously, we do see it be a very important industry at the moment. You know, AI plays a big role in things like human detection, machine vision, which are very prominent markets, and there's growing technology out there. But how's the consumer space going to adapt to this? And do you have much information around AI PCs and how this part of the segment and the area is going to grow?
Well, I think it's a wonderful marketing term, I think, for all the
Yeah.
PC
And is it
manufacturers.
a marketing
I
term only?
mean, they definitely love it. So now taking our memory glasses on again, okay, what is the big change for us? AI on a computer mainly means reasons to get more performance.
Yeah.
Okay, so this means when Apple says, okay, we are putting our notebooks, our MacBooks out with 8 gig because we are so great, we know software and we know hardware, you don't need more than 8 gig. With AI, they cannot do this anymore. They need to minimize to go to 16 gig. I think even Windows, the minimum requirement by Microsoft, I think, is 8 gig, but nobody really should work on a
No,
Windows with 8 gig, okay?
it's not going to work.
It's painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
So now with this move, you see smartphones will get more low power DRAM, okay? So if Apple is making 80 to 85 million phones per year and every phone has 2 gig more low power DRAM in, okay, they're eating a big piece of the pie, what I mentioned to you, of the 50% cutting edge technology, right? Like HBM, low power DDR5 and all of this. So on the NAND flash side, there, I think it's also quite interesting to see new technologies are coming. I think you spoke about data center, talking about QLC, where you have higher densities, but it comes with a bag of disadvantages, right? So I think you need to really balance out where it makes sense, but I think there will be no way around. I remember when TLC came out, and I had customers in Japan and said, "Oh, we only use MLC technology, never TLC." And today everybody use it. Yeah,
Yeah,
because we
exactly.
found ways with the controller how to manage this, understand the application, understand the firmware. So it's the way to go because the world needs more density. You need more capacity. And in this regards, AI, besides all the 3, 5 million US dollar NVIDIA server,
Mhm.
it will trickle down to other layers, right? So it will come to different layers. You mentioned it also in regards for IoT. I think edge AI will be very important. So you have a
Yeah,
lot of sensors, and the sensors are basically putting the data first on a on-premise smaller server device, like smaller form factor, and
yeah.
then push it up to the cloud on a regular base. So
Hmm.
that's where I believe where we really see an impact. But the whole hype at the moment, I think most of distributors and also a lot of the manufacturers, they don't see this immediate effect. They can just watch, like in an aquarium where you look inside and you see like all the
Yeah,
big sharks, swimming around, but they are not a
yeah.
part of
Yeah, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like some of the players in the market's quite there yet. But again,
Yes.
it's foreseeing what's coming in the future, and it
Yep.
definitely feels like the next 12 to 18 to or however long months is going to be an AI focus. But again, outside of that for DRAM and NAND, do you see any other new emergencies or any shakeups that may have an effect on the memory market or the semiconductor market as we approach 2025, or is it just purely AI that we should be focused on?
Well, I like to talk about the second wave of AI. I think when you feed, because
Yeah,
I'll give you an example. There's a US company called Croc. There's in Europe a company called Spin Cloud. These are companies, they make AI chips on lithography above 20 nanometer.
yeah,
Okay, normally you always hear, oh, 3 nanometer, 2 nanometer, angstrom, all these things which are coming. But you can make special purpose AI chips also on older nodes, which is great for Europe because in Europe we have different foundries in Germany, we have packaging in Portugal. So we could have also some kind of a more secure supply chain in Europe when it comes to this. We definitely don't have this when you go to leading edge technology. And even the new fab from TSMC, which is supposed to come to Dresden, will not have leading edge. The
right,
only leading edge what potentially would come is Intel, but we both know Intel is going through some very big challenges at the moment, and they put the project at the moment for 2 years on hold.
right,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
So I think that's something where we need to see how is the market there positioned in Europe. And for example, for memory, we don't have any kind of factory here in Europe, so we rely mainly on the manufacturers in Asia.
yeah, got you. Okay, well, look, I think that's been some very thorough overview of where we're at now and very much AI centric, but something I'd like to do with you that I've done in the past two podcasts. And as we enter the final quarter in 2025, what would your advice be to customers out there, specifically in the industrial market, and how they should approach the market in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think the industrial customer, they are mainly there's a correlation between the MCUs, the chipsets they are using, what type of technology they can use, right? And so it's still very widespread that people are using DDR3, DDR4 technology. They definitely should make sure, that they are not put all eggs in one basket. Yeah, they
Mm.
should look, okay, which players are around, look at the roadmaps, work with companies like you to get a good understanding, hey, what solutions are out there when we talk about DRAM. I think NAND is even more, you need even more understanding of your customer's need, right? Because you can use a NAND interface or a technology and you load one time the data and then you just read, or you have test and measurement where you constantly do it. It's very important that your customers speak to your sales reps and make sure that they are prepared, that they have like multiple sources or opportunities where they can choose from. And
Mm.
then they need to look and understand more about the process nodes which are available. So I think it's always good to have good informed customers and they share with you information because then you can give them the best advice that they are not getting into any challenges like we had seen during the pandemic. There's really no reason at the moment to panic or to overreact. But what is very, very important, be prepared. Be
Yeah.
prepared. Do not only go out when the issue is there. So right now we have, let's say, a pretty stable market, especially when you talk about DDR5 and below.
Mm.
Even DDR5, I think when we look at spot market prices comparing to contractual pricing, The gap is too big at the moment. I think that the manufacturer can keep this for continuously. So this will be very interesting. How will be the end of the AI frenzy? Will this be a soft landing? Will this be a hard landing? At the moment, still demand outpaces supply.
Yeah.
Definitely, that's still the case.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah, like I said, that's a really great update there. And to be fair, most of our customers and everyone watching this, as you'll know, Marco is very prominent on LinkedIn, and you keep everyone up to date in your network and what's going on in the market, especially on the things that we've discussed there. So I'll put a link to your LinkedIn below so you can follow you and stay tuned to those updates. But yeah, thank you again for joining us, Marco. And
Sure.
yeah, hopefully Sims will see you in Electronica in a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Would be a pleasure. Okay.
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye.